Pam Bondi spoke the truth, and Crockett showed her true colors by her actions. Before diving into the stories, comment where you're watching from and at what time. Shut up, Pam! Jasmine Felicia Crockett's voice cuts through the Capitol Press Center air like a knife, drowning out the hum of cameras and the whispers of reporters. Her eyes blaze, her hands gripping the podium so tightly her knuckles turn white. The room falls into dead silence, only the rain tapping against the window, counting down the seconds to an explosion. Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, stands a few steps away, her face flushed with anger, lips trembling, but she holds her posture. Her blonde hair, tied tightly into a bun, contrasts with the chaos unfolding. She steps toward the microphone, and her voice, cold and sharp, pierces the silence. You forget who you're talking to, Congresswoman. I'm not your subordinate for you to dare speak to me like that. Jasmine turns sharply toward her dark blue blazer crumpling with the movement. She doesn't shout, but every word is like a blow. And you forget who you're standing for, Pam. For Musk? For Doge? Or for the people you're throwing under the bus for their cuts? I'm here to speak for those you silence. The room erupts. Reporters frantically jot down notes. Cameras zoom in on the tense faces of both women. In the corner, a muted cough from an elderly CNN journalist whispers to a colleague. It's like Vietnam in the 70s, only without the fists. Outside the window, the Tesla takedown protesters roar, their voices blending with the rain. No Musk, no lies. Posters sway in their hands, wet from the water, but unyielding. Pam clenches her fists, her nails digging into her palms. She casts a glance at her assistant standing by the door, who nods as if receiving a silent command. Then she turns back to Jasmine, her voice trembling with restrained fury. Do you call this justice? Your words are fuel to the fire. Because of you, cars are burning in Austin. Because of you, people are losing jobs because they can't get to them. You want chaos, not truth. Jasmine steps forward, her heels clicking on the wooden floor, now standing so close that her uneven breathing is audible. Her eyes, dark like storm clouds, lock onto Pam. Chaos? You call it chaos that people have finally woken up? You're threatening my voters. You're intimidating those who dare speak out against your cuts machine. I'm not afraid of you, Pam, and I won't stay silent. The tension in the room becomes unbearable. Journalists freeze, afraid to miss a word. One of the cameramen accidentally bumps the tripod, and the sound of falling metal rings like a shot. Pam steps back a half step, her face hardening, but something like fear flashes in her eyes. She sharply turns to the microphone. You've crossed the line, Crockett. This is no game. You think you can challenge me and escape the consequences? We'll see. Jasmine smiles, a thin, cold smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Consequences? I live with them every day when I see people lose everything because of your policies. If you want a war, Pam, I'm ready. But I'll fight with words, not your dirty tricks. Pam sharply turns away, her heels clicking loudly as she walks toward the exit. The door slams behind her, and the sound echoes in the room like a final chord. Jasmine stands firm, her chest rising with heavy breaths. She hears Casey, her assistant, whisper behind her. My God, Jasmine, what have you done? She doesn't respond. Her gaze falls on the crowd outside the window. Wet faces, clenched fists, eyes filled with hope and anger. Her phone vibrates in her pocket, likely the faction leader demanding an explanation. But she doesn't move. Her heart pounds, her fingers tremble, but inside there's fire. An hour later, Jasmine sits in her office, holding a cold cup of tea. Outside, Washington hums, sirens, honking horns, the cries of protesters. Her desk is piled with letters. You're a hero. You're a traitor. Casey bursts in, her face pale, eyes wide. Pam Bondi just called. She wants a meeting. Tomorrow. One-on-one. Jasmine lifts her gaze, her lips pressing into a determined line. Let her come. she says softly, but with steel in her voice. I'm not done yet. The morning of April 5th, 2025, in Washington is heavy with fog swirling over the Potomac, muffling distant sirens and car horns. Jasmine Felicia Crockett stands before the mirror in her office, her fingers trembling as she ties a scarf around her neck, dark red, like the blood boiling in her veins. She hasn't slept all night, replaying the explosion from yesterday's press conference in her mind. Her phone is blowing up with messages. The faction leader writes, "You've gone too far," and voters from Texas plead, "Don't give up." But Jasmine's thoughts are focused on the meeting with Pam Bondi, scheduled to happen in an hour. This is not just a conversation. This is war. At 9:50, she exits the taxi in front of the Department of Justice building. The fog sticks to her face, cold and damp, and her heels click on the wet asphalt, echoing in the silence. A security guard at the entrance checks her ID, his gaze like an X-ray, as if searching for weapons. Inside, it smells of disinfectant and coffee, but the air is heavy, like in a courtroom before a verdict. Pam's assistant, a thin man with a gray face and nervous hands, greets her in the lobby. "The Attorney General is waiting," he mumbles, avoiding her gaze, and leads Jasmine down the hallway, where the walls are lined with portraits of stern men in robes. Pam Bondi's office smells of leather and old books, but it's cold, like a morgue. Pam sits behind a massive oak desk, her hands folded, her nails painted red, the only bright spot in her gray suit. She doesn't rise, only gestures toward the chair across from her, her eyes sharp as blades. "Sit down." Her voice cuts like glass. Jasmine doesn't move. Her heart pounds, but she stands straight, chin raised. "I won't sit, Pam. You wanted a dialogue? Then speak. But don't think I'm here to apologize." Pam slowly rises, her chair creaking, and the sound echoes in the silence. She walks around the desk, stopping just a step away from Jasmine. Her breath is sharp, like winter wind, her eyes narrowed to slits. "You think you can come here and challenge me?" she hisses. "Yesterday you put on a show for the cameras, but today you're on my turf. I want to know what you're up to before I crush you." Jasmine clenches her fists, her nails digging into her palms, but her voice remains steady. "Crush me? You've already crushed thousands, Pam. Doge throws them out on the streets. You threaten those who dare protest. And then you blame me? I'm doing what I should have done long ago, telling the truth to people like you." Pam laughs sharply, a brief, biting sound that grates on the nerves. "Truth? You're inciting the crowd, Jasmine. Because of your words, cars are burning in Austin. Warehouses are being looted in Chicago. You call this the truth? I call it a crime." Jasmine takes a step forward, her face now so close that she feels the heat of Pam's anger. Her voice drops to a whisper, but it carries a storm within it. "A crime is what you're doing to people. I've seen them, Pam. Mothers crying because they can't feed their kids. Men who've given 40 years to factories, now begging on the streets. You call this progress? I call it shame." Pam inhales sharply, her eyes flashing. She grabs a file from the desk and throws it in front of Jasmine, papers scatter, and one of them shows a photo of the burning Tesla warehouse in Chicago. The headline reading, "Protests or Provocation?" "This is what you started," Pam shouts, her voice breaking. "2 people are in the hospital, Jasmine. You think this is a game? I could charge you with inciting violence right now." Jasmine looks at the photo, her stomach tightening. She sees the smoke rising into the sky, hears the screams in her mind. But she doesn't look away from Pam. "If it's true, I'll deal with it," she says, her voice trembling but unbroken. "But don't you dare pin this on me. You push people until they explode. This is your fault, not mine." Pam grabs the phone from the desk, her fingers shaking with rage. "Get out of here," she growls. "But I'm not done with you. You'll regret opening your mouth." Jasmine turns to the door, her steps loud as gunshots. In the hallway, she leans against the wall, her chest rising and falling, her heart pounding. She hears Pam screaming into the phone, "Gather everything you have on her. I want to destroy her." 2 hours later, Jasmine sits in her office, her hands still trembling. The TV on the desk shows Fox News. Congresswoman Crockett accused of inciting Tesla arson. The camera shows a burning warehouse, a crowd with Tesla takedown signs, police in bulletproof vests. Casey rushes in, her eyes full of tears. "Jasmine, it's everywhere. They're saying you're guilty. What are we going to do?" Jasmine stands up, her face pale, but her eyes burn. "We're going to Chicago," she says. "I'll talk to the people. If it's because of me, I'll take responsibility. But I won't let Pam win." Casey gasps for air. "But there's chaos. They could." "I said we're going," Jasmine interrupts, her voice like steel. "Gather the team. We're flying out today." She grabs her coat, her heart pounding. Sirens wail outside, distant screams. She knows Chicago is a risk, but retreating means surrendering. And Jasmine Crockett doesn't surrender. The plane lands at O'Hare Airport at 5:32 p.m. on April 5, 2025. The sky over Chicago is gray, heavy with smoke and clouds that loom over the city like an oppressive shadow. Jasmine Felicia Crockett steps out of the terminal, her coat billowing in the sharp wind that carries the scent of burning metal and gasoline. Casey follows behind her, clutching her phone, her face pale, eyes darting across news headlines. Chicago on fire. Protests or uprising. In the car taking them to the Tesla warehouse district, the driver, an elderly man with a gray beard, mumbles under his breath, "I drove trucks for 40 years. Now everything's burning. What have you politicians done?" Jasmine doesn't answer. Her gaze is fixed out the window. The streets flicker with sirens, shattered windows, groups of people holding signs that read Tesla takedown. She clenches her fists, her nails digging into her palms, leaving crescent marks. Her heart pounds, not with fear, but with anger and resolve. The car stops 2 blocks from the warehouse. They can't go any farther. The road is blocked by police barricades, behind which shouts and the crackle of fire can be heard. Jasmine steps out, her heels crunching on broken glass. The air is thick with smoke, her eyes sting, but she moves forward, Casey grabbing her arm, whispering, "Jasmine, this is insane. We can't." "We're already here." She cuts her off, her voice hard as the concrete beneath her feet. Before them, chaos. The Tesla warehouse, a massive metal box, is ablaze, flames licking the sky, devouring the roof. Police in helmets and shields hold back a roaring crowd chanting, "Down with Musk. Down with Doge." Rocks, bottles, and tear gas fill the air, forcing people to cough and scatter. Jasmine sees faces, young, old, filled with rage and despair. Her stomach tightens, but she doesn't stop. Suddenly, a man bursts from the crowd, gray-haired, in a worn-out jacket, his eyes red from smoke and tears. He grabs Jasmine's arm, his fingers trembling. "Are you Crockett?" he shouts over the noise. "You told us to fight. My son was in that building when this started. Where's your truth now?" Jasmine freezes, her heart skipping a beat. She looks into his eyes, the eyes of a father who has lost everything, and feels her anger mix with guilt. "I'm here to listen," she says, her voice shaking but unbroken. "Tell me what happened." "What happened?" He spits on the ground, his voice breaking. "They laid him off, then rehired him at half pay. He went to protest, and now," he doesn't finish, his words swallowed by sobs. The crowd notices Jasmine. Someone yells, "She's here." Another shouts, "This is her fault." A rock flies past her head. Casey grabs her arm, pulling her back. "Jasmine, let's go." They're not listening. But Jasmine breaks free. She climbs onto an overturned barrel, her coat tearing on its sharp edge. But she doesn't care. Her voice cuts through the smoky air. "Listen to me. I am Jasmine Crockett, and I'm not here to hide. I know you're angry. I know you've lost everything. But I fight for you, not against you. The crowd hesitates for a moment, but then someone shouts, "Your words brought us here." Another adds, "Tesla is burning because of you." Rocks fly again, one hitting her shoulder, making her stumble. But she holds firm. Suddenly, a megaphone blares from behind the barricades. Pam Bondi's voice, cold, sharp, cuts through the chaos. "Congresswoman Crockett, you are inciting violence. I order you to leave immediately, or I will have you arrested for disturbing the peace." Jasmine turns, locking eyes with Pam behind the police line. She stands in a bulletproof vest, surrounded by agents, her face a mask of fury and triumph. The crowd erupts and shouts, someone throws a bottle at the police, and tear gas hisses into the air again. Jasmine coughs, her eyes watering, but she doesn't leave. She shouts back, her voice hoarse from smoke. "Arrest me, Pam. But you won't arrest the truth. These people aren't criminals, they are victims of your system." The police move in, shields closing in, the crowd retreating, but Jasmine stands firm. The gray-bearded man grabs her arm, yanking her down. "Get out of here, fool. They'll crush you." She falls from a barrel, her knee slamming against the pavement, pain shooting through her leg. Casey drags her toward the car, tears streaming down her face. "Jasmine, enough. We're leaving." The car speeds away as police begin dispersing the crowd. Jasmine watches through the window, her chest heaving, blood trickling from her scraped knee. She hears Pam's voice echo through the megaphone. "This is just the beginning, Crockett." An hour later, Jasmine sits in her hotel room, her leg bandaged, the TV flashing CNN. Congresswoman Crockett at the center of Chicago riots. The silver-haired anchor says it feels like 68 in Chicago. Is she becoming a martyr or a criminal? Casey paces the room, her voice trembling. "They're saying you might be charged." Pam is already talking to the press. Jasmine stands, her face pale, but her eyes burning. "Let her talk. I saw them, Casey. I heard them. We're not backing down." The phone rings, an unknown number. Jasmine answers, and Pam's voice, cold and menacing, snakes through the line. "You made your move, Jasmine. Now it's my turn. Expect a subpoena." The line goes dead. Jasmine throws the phone onto the table, her hands shaking. She knows the battle has only begun. The night in Chicago, April 5, 2025, heavy with smoke and tension. Jasmine Felicia Crockett sits in a dimly lit hotel room, her leg throbbing with pain, wrapped in a blood-soaked bandage. The TV on the table hums, CNN showing footage of the burning Tesla warehouse, the host with a gray fringe murmuring, "Congresswoman Crockett, hero or instigator?" America is divided. Casey sits on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking as she scrolls through her phone, reading headlines. Pam Bondi promises tough measures. Tesla takedown protests. Chaos or revolution? Jasmine looks out the window, where red and blue police lights flash. Her heart pounds, her thoughts buzzing like a swarm of bees. The summons from Pam isn't just a threat, it's a sword hanging over her head. But the words of that man in the crowd, "My son was there," cut deeper than any court document. She clenches her fists, her nails digging into her palms when suddenly, the phone on the table rings again. An unknown number. She grabs the receiver, her voice hoarse with exhaustion. "What now, Pam?" But it's not Pam on the other end. The voice is low, raspy, with a slight Texan accent. "Congresswoman Crockett, this isn't Bondi. My name is Roy Harris. I worked for Tesla. We need to talk. Now." Jasmine freezes, her eyes narrowing. "Who are you? And why should I trust you?" "Because I know who set the warehouse on fire," he says, his voice trembling, not from fear but from anger. "And it wasn't your people. Meet me. North Station, Platform 7. In an hour. Come alone." The line goes dead. Jasmine slams the phone down on the table. Her heart skips a beat. Casey looks up, her eyes wide with alarm. "Who was that?" Jasmine doesn't answer. Her mind is racing. Is this a trap or a chance? She grabs her coat, wincing in pain from her knee, but moving toward the door. Jasmine, where are you going? Casey shouts, jumping to her feet. You can't go alone. Pam. I have to. Jasmine cuts her off, her voice steely. Stay here. If I'm not back in 2 hours, call the lawyer. Casey gasps for air, but Jasmine is already out the door, the sound of it slamming behind her. North Station is cold, damp, and smells of oil and metal. Platform 7 is nearly empty. Only a few homeless people huddled near a trash bin with a smoldering fire. Jasmine stands in the shadows, her coat wet from the fog settling on her skin. She hears the distant hum of a train, the click of rails, but her eyes are scanning for Roy Harris. Suddenly, from the darkness, a man emerges tall, wearing a worn denim jacket, with a scruffy beard and eyes that burn like embers. He holds a folder in his hands, his fingers trembling. Are you Crockett? He asks, his voice low like thunder. Yes, Jasmine replies, her hand instinctively clenching into a fist. What do you know? Roy tosses the folder at her feet, papers scattering across the dirty platform. She sees documents, Tesla, internal memos, signatures, numbers. It wasn't your protesters who set the warehouse on fire, he says, his voice slicing the air. It was Tesla. They hired people to start the fire. They wanted to blame you and Doge, to distract from the layoffs. I was on the team that planned it. But I won't stay silent. Jasmine freezes, her stomach tightens. She bends down, grabbing one of the papers, a memo from Tesla, stamped with their logo, dated a week ago. Operation Clean Field, redirect anger towards Crockett. Her eyes scan the lines, her heart pounding. Why are you giving this to me? She asks, her voice trembling from shock. Because I've lost everything, Roy croaks. 25 years at the factory, and they threw me out like a dog. Then they offered me dirty work, arson. I refused, but I saw who did it. I don't want them to destroy you for something I couldn't stop. Suddenly, a sound cuts through the darkness, the click of a gun's safety. Jasmine spins around, her eyes catching a shadow behind the columns. Roy grabs her arm, pulling her down. Get down, he shouts as the shot shatters the silence. The bullet strikes a metal beam above them, sparks raining down on the platform. Jasmine drops to her knees, her heart racing in her throat. She watches as 2 men in black step out from the shadows, their faces covered with masks. Roy pulls a gun from his waistband, old, worn, but ready. Run, he shouts, firing a shot into the air. The sound of the shot deafens her, and the attackers retreat into the darkness. Jasmine grabs the folder, her hands trembling, and runs toward the stairs, her knee screaming in pain. She hears Roy shouting behind her, "Stop them, Crockett." Then another shot, followed by silence. She bursts into the hotel room at 2:17 a.m., her clothes drenched in sweat and fog, the folder pressed to her chest. Casey jumps out of bed, her eyes filled with fear. Jasmine, what happened? You're all. Call the lawyer, Jasmine interrupts, her voice hoarse. And turn on the camera. We're going live. Now. Casey grabs the phone, her fingers shaking. Jasmine tosses the folder on the table, her eyes blazing. She knows Roy is probably dead. She knows Pam is just a puppet in this game. And she knows that Tesla has crossed a line that can never be forgiven. The TV is on. Fox News is showing Pam Bondi standing in front of cameras. Crockett will be held accountable for Chicago. The evidence is undeniable. But Jasmine holds the real evidence in her hands, and she's ready to burn it all to the ground. Hotel room in Chicago, April 6, 2025, 2:45 a.m. The air is thick with tension, the smell of sweat and cold coffee in a paper cup. Jasmine Felicia Crockett stands in front of her laptop, her face pale, but her eyes burn with an unyielding fire. Casey holds the phone. The camera is on, The live stream on YouTube has already begun. On the screen, thousands of viewers, the number rising rapidly. 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. Jasmine holds a folder with Tesla documents. Her hands tremble, but her voice is like steel cutting through the darkness. America, listen to me, she begins, her words echoing in the silence. I am Jasmine Crockett, your congresswoman from Texas. For the last 2 days, I've been accused of inciting violence. Attorney General Pam Bondi called me a criminal. But today, I will show you the truth. She unfolds the Tesla memorandum, holding it in front of the camera. Her fingers leave bloody fingerprints on the paper, marks from a broken knee, but she pays no attention. This is an order from Tesla to set fire to their own warehouse in Chicago. They hired people to create chaos and blame me and the Tesla takedown protesters. They wanted to destroy us to cover up their layoffs. Thousands of people thrown onto the streets for profit. I received this from Roy Harris, a Tesla employee who refused to stay silent. And, perhaps, paid for it with his life. Casey quietly sobs, but holds the phone firmly. The live chat explodes with comments. Oh my God, expose them. Roy is a hero. Jasmine looks up. Her eyes tear from the smoke and exhaustion, but there is power in them. I didn't call for violence, she continues. I called for justice. And today, I am addressing you Americans. Don't let them silence us. We are stronger than their lies. She places the memorandum on the table, her chest rising with heavy breaths. Suddenly, Casey's phone rings. MSNBC requests an urgent comment. Jasmine nods, and Casey switches the call to speakerphone. The voice of the host, familiar to millions of Americans over 55, sounds anxious. Congresswoman Crockett, this is Rachel Maddow. We're live. You claim Tesla set the fire? What are your next steps? Jasmine smiles, a thin, tired, but triumphant smile. Rachel, I'm sending these documents to the FBI in an hour. I demand an investigation into Tesla and Pam Bondi's role in covering this up. And I'm going to the people in Chicago, Austin, everywhere they've been affected. We will not back down. The stream explodes. MSNBC cuts the connection to show the documents that Casey is sending in real time. The TV in the room switches to Fox News, where the host, with a red face, yells, "This is absurd." But even there, doubt seeps into the commentators' voices. At 6 a.m., the sun breaks through the clouds over Chicago, casting faint light on the charred remains of the Tesla warehouse. Jasmine stands before the crowd, hundreds of people, from young activists to elderly workers with graying temples. Her leg is bandaged, her coat torn, but she stands tall. Next to her is a man with a gray beard, the same one who yelled at her yesterday. His eyes are full of tears, but now hope. I found out my son is alive, he says, his voice trembling. He's in the hospital, but he survived. You fought for us. Thank you. Jasmine places her hand on his shoulder, her throat tight. We fought together, she whispers. The crowd erupts in applause, shouting, Jasmine! Jasmine! MSNBC and CNN cameras capture every moment, but Jasmine doesn't look at them. She looks at the people, their clenched fists, their tears, their faith. Meanwhile, in Washington, Pam Bondi sits in her office, her hands trembling as she slams the phone onto the table. The screen is shattered, but she's heard enough. The FBI is already knocking on Tesla's door, and her name is surfacing in every headline. Her assistant rushes in, his face pale. Madam Attorney General, they want your testimony. What do we do? Pam closes her eyes, her lips tightening. She knows her bluff has been exposed. But she whispers, we fight until the end. At 8 a.m., Jasmine returns to the hotel, collapses into a chair, her body screaming with exhaustion. Casey turns on the TV. All the channels, from PBS to Fox, are talking about her. Rachel Maddow calls her the voice of people. Even conservative hosts acknowledge. She changed the game. The phone rings, the faction leader, now with an apology. We're with you, Jasmine. She looks at the folder lying on the table and thinks about Roy Harris. His fate is unknown, but his courage sparked this fire. She whispers to herself, "Thank you, Roy." Casey approaches, her eyes shining. "We won, Jasmine. What's next?" Jasmine lifts her gaze, her smile warm, genuine, full of hope. "This isn't the end, Casey. It's the beginning. We're going to the people. And we won't stop." The laptop screen still shows the stream, 200,000 viewers, and the number keeps rising. In the chat, a message flashes. "Jasmine, tell us more." "We're with you." She nods to herself, knowing that this story is just the first page.